The descent wasn't meant to be graceful. Tevin hadn't aimed for anything but survival. His shuttle cracked the sky of Selora like a dry bone, trailing fire and memory. Wind tore at the edges of the small craft as alarms screeched in a dozen languages. The NAV system sputtered, overloaded. One final blip on the tracker, then nothing. He crashed through the forest canopy with the violence of a broken vow, landing hard in a sea of violet moss that pulsed beneath his weight. Then, stillness. Only the soft, eerie whisper of the Celoran flora singing around the wreckage. The plants hummed faintly, a language he couldn't decipher, music shaped like breath. Tevin crawled from the broken cockpit, one arm limp at his side, ribs splintered with every cough. Dust settled over the metal, and the trees swayed like they were curious. He knelt in silence, touching the moss with his fingers, feeling the strange warmth. The wound on his leg wept slowly through his torn flight suit. She was right, he whispered hoarsely to no one. This place does sing. Behind him, something chirped. Then again, closer. A footstep, or maybe a heartbeat. He reached for his pulse knife. But what came wasn't a soldier. It was a woman. Scene 2, the listener. She stepped into the clearing like the moon had let go of her hand. Pale robes fluttered, woven from something not quite fabric. Her eyes were a soft amber, wide and careful. The song of the plants dimmed around her like they recognized her. She said nothing, kneeling beside him. Her fingers ghosted over his side. "Don't," Tevin started, but his voice cracked. The knife slipped from his grasp. He was too tired to hold on to suspicion. "You fell with fire," she said gently. Her voice was low, textured, like wind through petals. "But the moss softened you. Are you Celoran?" he managed. "Yes. My name is Nari." She lifted his shirt and examined the torn skin. Her touch was clinical, not cold. Her hands glowed faintly at the palms, biolight healers. Her people used light instead of stitches. "You have an imperial tag on your collar," she said, not unkindly. "I'm not with them. Not anymore." "I believe you." Her voice didn't waver. He blinked. "Why?" "Because you're bleeding into the roots. And they're still singing." The forest had gone quiet when the shuttle fell. But now, the song had returned, soft pulses, almost a lullaby. She looked at him, and something behind her eyes stirred, curiosity, or was it recognition? Tevin passed out before he could ask. Scene 3, a quiet kind of rescue. He woke in a room made of living things. The walls pulsed with breath. The ceiling glowed with soft, flickering spores. He was lying on a woven bed of vine and silk thread bark. A long band of moss trailed along his side like it had grown there. She sat nearby, painting something on a smooth oval stone. When she saw his eyes open, she smiled, just slightly. "You were burning with fever." "The forest helped," she said. He sat up too fast and winced. "You should have left me." "I almost did," she said simply. "But then you whispered someone's name. It sounded like a plea." He closed his eyes. "My mother. She's not here. She was taken. By the Kedron Empire. They don't leave much behind." "I know," Nari said, and her voice cooled just a shade. "They came here once, too. Took our waters. Called it diplomatic trade. And you still helped me." "I saw someone broken," she said. "Not Kedron." He looked at her, truly looked, how her hair seemed to hold echoes of wind, how her hands moved with quiet precision, and how her silence felt like an invitation rather than a wall. Tevin swallowed hard. "I came to hide," he said. "But I don't think that's what I'm doing anymore." "No," Nari murmured. "You're waiting." "For what?" She set the painted stone aside and met his eyes. "For the kind of justice that doesn't burn cities, but rewrites memory." In the high canopies of Salora's southern ridge, Arrow lived in solitude among the leaf combs and fiber light cables. His home wasn't so much built as it was grown, vines had agreed to hold his walls, moss had volunteered to dampen sound. Every corner was softened by wild quiet, but the silence inside Arrow had nothing to do with peace. He adjusted the lens of his reader and leaned over the holoprojector. Again, he muttered. The message played for the 8th time. A fractured pulse of static. Then a faint, low-frequency voice encoded in Kedron cipher. All seeds must bloom, when the root remembers. It repeated, then cut out. Arrow leaned back, fingers twitching above his poet's terminal. His arms were partially synthetic, silver-plated from wrist to shoulder, a remnant of the war he never finished fighting. He wore no insignia anymore, just fragments of the past stitched into his voice. The phrase shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. And it only came through the pedal song, Salora's underground biocommunications network, a system used by the flora to share water, chemical signals, and sometimes, human secrets. Tevin, Arrow whispered. You survived. He stood and opened his message console. Then paused. Because somewhere deep in his chest, the name Nari stirred. And the ache that followed wasn't from old wounds. It was love, unresolved, unspoken. And now, endangered. Scene 2, the informant who stayed too long. On a wind-beaten satellite that orbited Kedra's 4th trade moon, Jin stood before a cracked mirror, trimming his beard with trembling hands. He used to wear a uniform. Now, only shadows. He used to believe in structure, in orders, in consequences. Now, all he had was one encrypted datapad and a single name burning in its core. Leora Verdon, classified deceased. Last known, memory vault, code, Motherglass. Leora Verdon. Tevin's mother. And Jin's mistake. He hadn't meant to betray her. He'd loved her once, in the brief days before politics blurred the edges of his heart. Before the Empire turned compassion into treason. When he heard the boy, Tevin, had vanished, he assumed the worst. But the pulse in the network had changed. Now there were whispers. That someone had survived the Verdun purge. That he'd fled to a moon the Kedrons had deemed unremarkable. Salora. Jin opened the encrypted message he'd held in stasis for years, Leora's final recording. He will return. Not for revenge. But for balance. Because that's what I raised him for. Jin inhaled, closed the file. It was time to do the only thing he still could, atone. He sent a transmission to Salora's last known uplink channel. The message would find Arrow. And through Arrow, maybe Tevin would listen. Scene 3, a poem you can't unsay. That night, in the blue-gold glow of the Saloran trees, Nari found Tevin resting with his back against a root bridge. He'd healed faster than most. Her mosses had whispered things about him, strength buried under grief. She handed him a warm root fruit drink. He smiled at her, tired but grateful. I got a transmission, he said softly. From who? A name I don't know. But it was passed through the pedal song. Someone sending messages through Salora itself. Nari frowned. Only a few know how. I think he was trying to find me, Tevin added. He said something about blooming, remembering. Nari stilled. That's part of an old Saloran vow, she said slowly. It's what we say before we open ourselves to someone. Tevin turned to her. What does it mean exactly? She looked away, pretending to focus on the drink in her hand. It means, if you truly remember where you came from, you'll know how to love without burning what you touch. Silence followed, thick, alive. Then, out of the shadows, came a voice. Familiar to Nari, and like a wound to Tevin. Arrow, she said. He stood beneath the low-hanging moon vine, hair tousled, eyes deep and unreadable. A satchel at his side, poetry ink across one wrist. He nodded toward Tevin. I think your past has started talking. Tevin stood, muscles tight. Who are you? A friend of your mother, Arrow said carefully. And, hers. He glanced at Nari. Once. Nari tensed. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. The Saloran sky looked close enough to touch. Stars shimmered in layered constellations, glowing faintly above the moss canopies. Nari stood barefoot on the ridge, letting the night wrap around her. Below, she could see the soft flicker of firelight from the den where Tevin slept. Or tried to. Arrow had gone, said too much, stayed too long. He had brought more than information. He had brought weight. Nari didn't know which ached more, the memory of Arrow's kiss that had once lingered in the curve of her jaw, or the way Tevin had looked at her after learning the truth. That she'd known parts of his past and never spoken them aloud. She heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. Tevin. I didn't wake you, did I? She asked. He stepped beside her and shook his head. Couldn't sleep. The breeze moved through her robes, and in the space between silence and speaking, something passed between them. Not touch. Something older. Need without demand. Gravity without orbit. Do you believe him? She asked. That my mother is still alive? Tevin nodded slowly. Yes. She looked at him. And if she is, would you go after her? A pause. I have to. Even if it means leaving Selora. He turned fully toward her. Even if it means never seeing you again. She looked away. But his voice was softer now, nearly a whisper. That's not what I want. But it's the truth. She felt something in her chest fold inward, and when she looked at him again, the stars in the sky weren't nearly as bright as the reflection of them in his eyes. You don't owe me anything, she said. He stepped closer. But I want to owe you something. Scene 2, underneath the bloom glass. They walked together, without destination. Down the moon path between blooming glass petal trees. Nari held a vial of glowing spores between her fingers, Tevin's hand brushed hers now and then, not quite holding. She stopped at a bloom glass pod and waved her hand over it. The petals curled open, revealing a soft blue glow. It's called the breath light, she said. Solorans use it when we say things we're not supposed to say in daylight. Tevin blinked. Secrets? No. Feelings. The breath light pulsed, reacting to her heartbeat. Tevin watched it flicker and leaned slightly closer. Can I try? He asked. She handed him the pod. Tevin held it carefully, and then, without fanfare, said, I think I'm falling in love with you. The breath light flared. Nari didn't move. Then she stepped forward, placed her hand over his. The pod between them warmed. I think I already did, she said. They stood in silence as the light surrounded them, humming faintly like the moss had begun to dream. Scene 3, What Love Must Choose. The next morning, the warning came in the roots. The moss sang not with lullaby, but with alarm. Tevin jolted upright. Outside, Nari was already there, hands on the soil, whispering to the flora. Her eyes turned to him, unreadable. They've found you. The Empire? Yes. A single hunter pod. Stealth class. They'll land in less than a day. Tevin cursed under his breath. They're here for the chip in my wrist. They'll level the ridge if they need to. I can lead them away. No, she said sharply. That's not what we do here. But I can't stay and endanger your people. She stepped forward. Tevin. I know where the mother glass is. Arrow told me before he left. If we leave tonight, we can get you to it. You come with me. I don't want to watch them take you, she said quietly. Or take what's left of you. He searched her face. If I go, if I get her back. I don't know if I'll come back the same. Nari cupped his face in her hands. I don't need you to come back the same. I just need you to come back. They stood in the doorway of the den, the bloom glass behind them slowly dimming. The stars above them spun slowly, Salora's rotation a slow lullaby in the distance. And between them hung a kiss that hadn't happened yet. A promise waiting for time to make it real. The mother glass was not a place. It was alive. A neural vault embedded within a lost moon station orbiting Kedra's third shard world, an archive of thought, dreams, and erased truths. The Empire called it a facility. Leora Verdon had called it a tomb. Tevin stood at the gates of its heart, hand trembling as he keyed in the access code burned into his memory from Arrow's final message. Nari stood behind him, cloak drawn tight, her expression unreadable. Jin waited near the auxiliary hatch, gun holstered, guilt in every wrinkle of his weather-worn face. I know you hate me, Jin said softly. I don't, Tevin replied. Hate is clean. You're something Messier. Jin nodded like that was fair. When we open it, she might not remember you. They fragment minds in the vault. Tevin looked down at his hand, his mother's hand, in smaller form. She'll remember something, he said. Even if it's just the sound of my name. Nari gently touched his arm. I'll be waiting. The door slid open. And Tevin stepped inside the mind of the woman who had raised him. Scene 2, a garden behind her eyes. She sat in a room made of projection and memory, glass walls shaped like childhood laughter, and a garden blooming with fragmented recollection. Leora Verdon. The woman the Empire had imprisoned in silence, her thoughts scattered like petals. She turned slowly as Tevin approached, her face caught between recognition and uncertainty. I dreamed of a voice, she said. It had your shape. His breath caught. Mom. She stood still. Then blinked. Tevin. He dropped to his knees before her. She gasped, then her hands flew to his face. A lifetime of silence broke across her eyes. I thought they took you. I thought you were gone. She pulled him into her arms, sobbing softly, the way only someone who has forgotten how to cry can sob. He held her like the universe was stitching itself back together. But something in her trembled. They changed things, she whispered. Memories. Thoughts. There's something I'm not supposed to remember. Try, he said. Try for me. She closed her eyes. And whispered, they were never hunting me. They were hunting you. Scene 3, Fracture. Outside the vault, Nari sat near the transport panel, watching the scanner. Jin stood to the side, silent. The years had changed him, but not the way he stiffened at proximity to pain. I failed them both, he said. You still can't speak the word love without wincing, Nari replied. He looked at her. You know how I knew I couldn't love her the way she deserved, he said. Because I was never afraid to lose her. I was afraid to lose my position. She didn't respond. Just turned her eyes toward the glass walls of the vault, watching two shadows move inside. Then the alarm flared. Incoming shuttle. Stealth class. Empire grade. Jin went for his weapon. We don't have time, he said. Nari activated the signal bloom on her wrist. Arrow. His voice crackled through. I see them. I'm in orbit. I can stall them, but not long. Get out. Inside the vault, Tevin and Leora emerged. Her steps were slow, like her mind was only half hers again. He saw the red alert and cursed. We need to run. No, Leora said. They're here for the seed. What seed? She touched his chest. You. They altered your biology when you were a child. You were their future soldier. I destroyed the data, but they want your body back. Tevin stared at her, the pieces snapping into place. Then we don't let them take it. Scene 4, A Kiss Before the Fall. Outside, smoke filled the corridor. The Empire had breached the outer wing. Gunfire crackled. Nari led Leora toward the evac dock while Jin covered their flank. Tevin moved ahead, clearing the path. His mind burned. He was the weapon. Not his mother. The Empire hadn't failed to kill her. They'd failed to use her. Nari, he called over the roar. She turned. Her eyes met his, wild, radiant, terrified. He ran to her. And kissed her. The smoke, the alarms, the end of everything, vanished. I might not come back, he said against her lips. Then kiss me again before you go. And he did. Then he turned. And ran back into the vault. The dust blew low across the glowing ridges of Arlin, for, stirred by no wind, moved instead by the ambient hum of the Old One's relic buried deep below the ground. Nien Varel stood at the threshold of the ancient chamber, Sci-Fi at his side. They had been traveling for 6 months, through asteroid fields, broken satellites, silent temples carved into frozen moons. Every piece, every map, every strange pulse of alien language had led them here. To where silence ended. Sci-Fi placed her hand on the bioglyph etched into the wall, and the door bloomed open like a flower made of light. Not a mechanical opening, but something living, alive with memory. Nien exhaled. Not out of fear. Out of hope. This is where they brought her, he said, voice almost a whisper. Sci-Fi looked up at him, her eyes wet but steady. If she's here, this place will show you. He took her hand. It was colder than usual. Not from fear, but from the way her species processed memory. Contact with places like this opened her too much, and she had to brace against it. He didn't let go. As they stepped inside, the chamber lit itself, rows of organic crystal rising from the floor, each humming with pulses. At the center stood a pedestal, and above it, suspended in shimmering stasis. His mother. Nia Sorrel. Nien dropped to his knees. She floated, eyes closed, hair moving gently in the energy current. She looked peaceful. Untouched by time. Not dead. Sci-Fi dropped beside him. They kept her between seconds, she whispered. This isn't imprisonment. This is, preservation. Why? His voice cracked, and he stood, fists clenched. What do they need from her? From the chamber walls, voices rose, not words, but shapes of sound, sensations that turned to memory in the mind. She chose this. We did not take. She offered. She is the bridge. But the storm is coming. Sci-Fi blinked rapidly, translating. Your mother, she volunteered. There was a breach in the silence network, some kind of rift. Something violent tried to come through. And only a human mind could stabilize it without shattering. Why her? Nien's voice cracked. Why my mother? Sci-Fi smiled faintly. You already know. She was kind. Open. Stable. She carried grief without letting it poison her. She was the safest place in the galaxy for a frightened mind to land. The word struck him. His mother hadn't been special in the way the galaxy often demanded. She didn't pilot starships. She didn't engineer superweapons. She made soup for the grieving. She taught abandoned children how to read by starlight. She held broken hearts in trembling hands. She had been human in the way that mattered most. He looked up at her. And then at Sci-Fi. How do we bring her back? Sci-Fi touched the pedestal. The crystal hummed in tones that ached with beauty. We don't wake her. Not unless we replace her. The rift still feeds on fear, on instability. If she's removed now, it collapses and takes systems with it. Then I'll do it. Sci-Fi turned sharply. No. Why not? Because I know what it would do to me, she said. Because I just found you, Nyen, and the universe is cruel enough without asking me to love someone only to lose them. He reached out, brushing a hand down her cheek. I can't leave her here. Then we'll find another way, Sci-Fi said. There's always another way. But even as she said it, the chamber trembled. From deep below, a new pulse rose. Different. Anger. A roar of memory no longer tethered to peace. The rift was widening. The descent to the core was not one they planned. The floor below them fractured, and both tumbled into light. For a moment, Nyen saw the stars, countless and terrified, each one reflecting some ancient wound. They landed in a void of drifting memories. Sci-Fi gasped. This is the cradle. The place before language. They stood on what looked like nothing, but felt like ground. Ahead, a shape coalesced, neither person nor beast. A wound given form. The rift, she whispered. It gained identity. It's aware. Nyen felt it too. It reached toward them, not with hate, but hunger. An aching void. A need to belong. It isn't evil, he said softly. No, Sci-Fi said. Just broken. Nyen stepped forward. You've been waiting for a voice. For a hand that doesn't tremble. The rift shimmered. And then it spoke. Not in words. In his mother's voice. You came back to me, it said. Nyen's knees gave. Mama. Part of me was kept here. But part of me became this. It was the only way to hold the breach. Sci-Fi took his hand. She didn't just hold it. She became its shape. She made her pain into a barrier. Nyen stood. Tears burned his eyes. He stepped into the shape of the rift, and it did not resist. He offered it memory. Of warmth. Of safety. Of his mother humming lullabies while lightning kissed the outer dome. And in return, the rift calmed. The shape became a woman again. His mother stepped toward him. Flesh and breath and trembling light. She wept. And he caught her. Back at the surface, the chamber welcomed them. The crystals dimmed, satisfied. Sci-Fi held both of them, one on each side, her body shaking with emotion she hadn't known she could carry. You did it, she whispered. You gave it what it needed. What was that? Nyen asked. Remembrance, she said. It wasn't trying to hurt the galaxy. It was trying not to be forgotten. The departure from Arlin, for was quiet. His mother, older now in her eyes but alive, slept in the medical cradle of their ship. Sci-Fi piloted. The stars stretched in the window ahead like threads waiting to be woven. They didn't speak for a while. Then Nyen turned to her. You said you never thought you could love again. She didn't look at him. But you do, don't you? She laughed. It was soft. Almost painful. Yes, she said. He leaned in. And this time, the kiss wasn't desperate. It was complete. A seal on a journey neither of them had asked for, but both had chosen to see through. A week later, the Galactic Council offered his mother the Solstice Medallion, the highest honor in the tenfold star systems. She refused. Instead, she asked for a school to be built. A place for memory. A place for silence to end without fear. On the balcony of the Skyward Observatory, Nyen and Sci-Fi stood together, fingers twined. What now? He asked. Now, she smiled. We live. We teach. We remember. And us? She looked at him, gently, completely. We're not a mission anymore, Nyen. We're a home. He kissed her then, with no need to hurry. And above them, the stars pulsed. Not in warning. But in peace.